So a couple weeks ago, my team and I were tasked with developing a photo share and review app that allowed users to see other photos that users had posted and also share reviews on restaurants that they had visited. My design element was to develop a model carousel. So a carousel that displayed on the front page that a user could scroll through and look at the various photos that users had posted, and then a model that popped up in front of it all that allowed you to see all the photos individually and then also see the comments that other users had made as well as their ratings as a user. So there were three main components to the app actually. The first one was the photo carousel, which was just a left to right carousel that allowed you to scroll through all the different photos that users had shared. And then a model that popped up. And within the model, there were two elements. The main one was another photo carousel that at the bottom displayed the user's comments and also the username and then its ratings. And then the sidebar element, which was next to it, that actually allowed you to scroll through all the various photos that other users had posted. Uh, the main challenge of this element was definitely building the model, getting it to override the carousel, and then also getting it to display the sidebar and the carousel within it separately. Took a little bit of planning and developing. I definitely structured all of it before I decided to actually start coding because I needed to make sure it was going to work properly. And even then, once I had built it, there was a lot of separating smaller things out into little subcomponents so that it could pass information from one thing to another and not override certain settings and features on the main page or on the model page, depending on which one I was in. Uh, and then after all of that, developing the Docker image that could then be put onto AWS to deploy. Um, there was definitely a fair amount of research that went into that, and also making sure that I could retain some of the seeded database so that the initial example of my element actually showed something, because without photos or data, there wasn't much to really see. So setting everything up so that it all talked and worked together separately was a bit of a challenge, and I definitely am glad that I separated out the model and the sidebar component because the two of them were very independent, even though they shared a lot of data. One thing that I would like to do in the future would actually be to allow the user to take sidebar elements and click on them and then have those displayed on the model carousel. Which would involve a lot of talking back to each other. And because I built them very separately, that's right now not a function that it allows for, but I would like to optimize later. So when I have time in the future, that would be something that I would definitely add to it. Otherwise, I am actually pretty pleased with the way that it came out. There's a few glitches in setting it all up to run with my team's work because of the way that it's laid out and the page sizing and how their elements are developed, especially since each of them also had their own model components. But ultimately, we were able to get everything to work fine together, and it took just a little bit of analyzing code and actually diving deep into how some of the CSS was laid out so that it could ultimately function separately and all of them would display the way they're supposed to. And even though it was a challenge, it was definitely fun.